Have you felt it? That strange sensation when you scroll? When you listen to the new top 40? When you look at the skyline of your city? It feels like a loop. Like the world ended 10 years ago, but the credits never rolled. We are just lingering. You might call it boredom or burnout, but it is deeper. It is a specific type of grief. You are grieving a timeline that was promised to you, but never arrived. You are homesick for a future you never lived. Flying cars, economic utopia, the 15-hour work week, the degree that guarantees safety. Where did they go? They were canceled. This isn't just your depression speaking, and it isn't just nostalgia. This is a structural reality of our time. Tonight, we are going to look at why you feel trapped in the long now, and why the future feels less like a promise and more like a ghost. Let's ground this. This feeling of stuckness isn't abstract. It's in your bank account. It is the architecture of your debt. Think back to when you signed those papers. 18 years old. The contract wasn't just for money. It was a trade. You trade your obedience now for a specific future later. You were sold a linear path, university, career, property, stability. That was the deal. But somewhere between the 2008 crash and the algorithmization of culture, that timeline was quietly deleted. The map you bought leads to a place that no longer exists. This is the source of your moral injury. You are still paying monthly installments on a future that was canceled. You are like a tenant paying rent for a house that burned down years ago. It creates a cognitive dissonance. You did everything right. You followed the script. So why does the result feel so empty? Why does culture feel recycled? Why does the economy feel like a zombie stumbling forward? Because we are haunted. To understand this haunting, and to stop letting it drain your life force, we need to turn to a cultural theorist who saw this coming before anyone else. A man who understood that the slow cancellation of the future is the defining trauma of our generation. To understand the ghost in the machine, we must turn to the work of the late British theorist, Mark Fisher. In his collection Ghosts of My Life, Fisher formalized a feeling that we have all tacitly accepted, but rarely articulated. The sensation that the future has ceased to be a generator of the new, and instead has become a museum of the past. He called this the slow cancellation of the future. Fisher wasn't arguing that time had literally stopped, or that technology wouldn't improve. He was arguing that cultural time, the feeling of moving forward into a new era, has folded in on itself. If you were to drop a teenager from the 1980s into the 1950s, the cultural shock would be violent. The music, the clothes, the social codes would be alien. But if you dropped a teenager from the 1990s into 2025, they would recognize almost everything. They would hear trap beats that echo the drum machines of the 80s. They would see fashion that recycles the grunge of the 90s. And they would see a cinema dominated by franchises that began 40 years ago. Fisher argues that we are suffering from a formal nostalgia. We have lost the capacity to imagine a world that is radically different from the one we inhabit. So we simply remix the past over and over again in high definition. This is what he calls capitalist realism, the sense that it is easier to imagine the end of the world than it is to imagine the end of capitalism, or even a slight alteration to the current economic order. We are trapped in the inertia of the long now. But how does this abstract cultural stagnation explain the knot in your stomach when you look at your loan balance? This brings us to Fisher's adoption of the concept of hauntology, a term originally coined by Jacques Derrida. Hauntology is the study of things that are not present, but whose absence shapes reality. It is the agency of the no longer acting upon the here and now. Your debt is a hauntological object par excellence. Think about it. When you took out that loan, you were borrowing against a specific vision of the future, a future of upward mobility, stable pensions, and the promise that a degree was a golden ticket. That future is dead. It died in the financialization of the university. It died in the gig economy, and it died in the stagnation of wages. But the debt remains. The ghost of that dead future is haunting your bank account. You are contractually obligated to service a timeline that was canceled. This creates a unique form of melancholia. You aren't just broke. You are mourning a life you were told was inevitable. Fisher writes that this melancholia arises not from the refusal to let go of the past, but from the inability to conceive of a future that hasn't already been pre-written by the market. When you feel that moral injury, that sense of being scammed, it is because you are living in a temporal glitch. The institutions, the universities, the lenders, the parents are still operating on the map of the 20th century. They are selling tickets to a show that closed decades ago. And you, the scholar-debtor, are the one left standing in the empty lobby, holding the bill for the performance. You are financing a ghost story. Fisher's insight is brutal, but it is necessary. As long as we continue to expect the old future to arrive, as long as we wait for the economy to go back to normal, we remain paralyzed. The slow cancellation is not just happening to culture, it is happening to your biography. The anxiety you feel is the friction between the reality of the 21st century dystopia and the fantasy of the 20th century promise. But here is the secret. Here is where the despair turns into a weapon. To realize the future is canceled is to be set free. As long as you are grieving the lost timeline, you are trapped in it. You are judging yourself by the metrics of a dead world. You feel shame because you aren't meeting the milestones of a 20th century economy that no longer exists. You are beating yourself up for not winning a game that ended 20 years ago. Stop trying to resurrect the ghost. Mark Fisher didn't write about this to depress us. He wrote it to wake us up. If the official future is gone, then we have no obligation to it. The debt you carry is a tax on a hallucination. Acknowledging this doesn't make the money disappear, but it dissolves the shame. You are not a failure because you didn't reach the destination. The destination was never there. You are free to walk off the map. The slow cancellation clears the board. It allows us to stop waiting for permission from institutions that have abandoned us. It invites us to invent a new future, one that isn't a remix, one that isn't a financial product, one that is terrifyingly, beautifully unknown. We must invent the future that the system could not deliver. So tonight, I have a question for you. Not a financial one, but a hauntological one. Look at your anxiety. Look at your sense of failure. Which ghost are you still trying to impress? Identify it, mourn it, and then, for the love of all that is still living, let it die. Keep thinking.